in a clear indication of growing distrust toward the federal government within Republican politics during the Trump era. GOP officials in 3 red states have sought to block the Justice Department's long-standing practice of sending observers to polling places. For nearly 6 decades, the DOJ has deployed monitors to ensure compliance with federal civil rights and voting laws, but officials in Missouri, Texas, and Florida have recently moved to halt this practice. In response, 2 of the states, Missouri and Texas, asked federal courts to intervene, though judges in both states ultimately declined to grant their requests. Texas reached a resolution with the DOJ, while Missouri's legal challenge is ongoing. Officials in these states argue that federal law does not permit DOJ monitors to observe polling places. Texas and Missouri both filed lawsuits asserting that state laws prevent federal officials from entering polling sites during elections. Texas law is clear. Texas Secretary of State Jane Nelson wrote in a letter to the DOJ last Friday. Justice Department monitors are not permitted inside polling places where ballots are being cast or at central counting stations. Similarly, Missouri Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, in his lawsuit, claimed state law clearly and specifically limits who may be in polling places and accused the DOJ of illegally interfering in Missouri's elections. Ashcroft, whose father John Ashcroft served as U.S. Attorney General under President George W. Bush, has previously overseen DOJ monitoring in multiple states without incident. Florida did not pursue a lawsuit but sent a letter to the DOJ with Secretary of State Cord Byrd arguing that state law prohibits federal observers in polling locations. In Missouri's case, the Justice Department pointed to a 2021 agreement with the city of St. Louis, which allowed the DOJ to monitor compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Federal District Judge Sarah Pitlick denied Missouri's request for a temporary restraining order, stating that the state's concerns were speculative and outweighed by the federal government's interest in enforcing disability rights laws. In Texas, U.S. District Judge Matthew Kaczmarek ruled similarly, denying the restraining order and saying he needed more information before making a decision. Kaczmarek allowed the DOJ to monitor polling places but stipulated that federal observers could not enter without a court order. He directed the DOJ to ensure that no observers would be stationed inside polling locations. However, even before Kaczmarek issued his ruling, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton reached an agreement with the DOJ that allowed federal monitors to remain outside polling places and speak with voters, which was the DOJ's original plan. Following the agreement, Texas dropped its lawsuit. Paxton then issued a press release declaring that he had secured a major victory by preventing federal personnel from entering Texas election sites. The pushback from Republican officials came after the Justice Department announced plans to send monitors to 86 jurisdictions across 27 states in the upcoming election, a move consistent with its decades-long practice of ensuring compliance with federal voting rights laws. This is set to be the largest number of monitored jurisdictions in over 20 years, a response to increasing threats against election workers and concerns about voter intimidation. DOJ monitors are typically rank-and-file attorneys and staff members rather than armed federal agents who are generally prohibited from entering polling places. Local law enforcement agencies secure polling locations on Election Day. The DOJ's role includes enforcing not just the Americans with Disabilities Act, but also the Voting Rights Act, which protects voters from intimidation and discrimination. As the 2024 election draws closer, the push from state GOP officials to limit federal monitoring highlights the deepening divide over the role of the federal government in overseeing elections, particularly in states that have strongly supported Trump in recent years.